The Astra Militarum makes up one of the largest fighting forces in Warhammer 40k. They are the Imperium of man's first line of defense and the spearhead of every offensive, staking their lives in the Emperor's name time and time again, consisting of billions of soldiers across a myriad of regiments to the point that the sheer scale of the Imperial Guard is almost unfathomable. While many of these regiments are uniform in both attitude and their combat doctrine, a select few have made a special place for themselves, either because of their unique appearance, extraordinary origins, or incredible discipline. In this video, we'll take a look at some of the most interesting Imperial Guard regiments, what exactly makes them so different, and we are starting with a good one. These captive criminals breathe in dangerous chemical concoctions while fighting for their freedom in the ranks of the Imperial Guard. This is the story of the Savlar Chem Dogs. Founded by Judge Callister of the Adeptus Arbites to quell an armed uprising on their home planet, the Chem Dogs were quickly discovered to be a highly effective fighting force, so much so that during the Third War of Armageddon, they were conscripted in huge numbers to fill ever-growing gaps in the Imperium's front line. The ragtag killers of the Chem Dogs are some of the most hardened criminals in the Imperium. Once locked away on the penal world of Savlar, they are offered their freedom in the form of service to the Imperium. This freedom comes with the chance to train as an Imperial Guardsman, escape the toxic atmosphere of their prison world, and often, more importantly to most, access to all the spoils of war that they can carry. Their service does not come without its limitations though. Should any recruit be found breaking Imperial law while with the Chem Dogs, they will be sent right back to Savlar to carry out the rest of their sentence in a cell. While they are masters at fighting in cramped, toxic battlefields, it's not above a Chem Dog to stop mid-fight to strip the dead of their valuables, making the job of the regiment's commissars all the more difficult and important as they try to control soldiers who are at their core nothing but savage criminals. The Chem Dogs are rarely given a standard set of equipment, with most of their armaments actually being stolen from other Imperial Guard regiments. The only thing they're all given freely is a bulky Savlar pattern rebreather required to survive the toxic environments that they are deployed to, although those who served on Armageddon have typically upgraded to the Armageddon pattern, which is seen as far superior. These rebreathers are also upgraded to include nitro-chem inhalers, fueling the wearer with dangerous hyperaggression chemicals that make the Chem Dogs an unpredictable and lethal threat on the battlefield. This Imperial Guard regiment is born and raised on a world where 50% of the human populace do not survive infancy, and of the remainder, only 50% of them live past the age of 10. Let's take a look at the Catachan jungle fighters. Catachan is a death world riddled with lethal predators and deadly plant life. With air, water, and soil that is so incredibly toxic, nothing foreign to it should be able to survive. It is a wonder, in that case, that humans even colonized this planet at all. Despite the extraordinarily hostile conditions, the Catachan jungle fighters managed to produce some of the most adept soldiers in the Astra Militarum from those that survive on this world. Experts in jungle warfare, they are molded by an existence where every day is a fight for survival. They are armed with deadly Catachan knives that make them lethal in hand-to-hand combat, and lighter las carbines that allow them increased mobility compared to their standard issue counterparts. As well as their conventional weapons, the jungle fighters will set booby traps, including mines, spike traps, and lashing branches in an attempt to divert their opponent and draw them into ambushes. The soldiers of the jungle fighters are recruited from the planet's population of hunters. Given the planet's hostility and the low survival rates, those that live to adulthood are incredibly strong, used to fighting back the encroaching jungle and the vicious beasts that come from it. Owing to the less than conventional environment that they are trained in, the Catachan soldiers prefer guerrilla warfare over regimented fighting tactics, with their innate survival skills allowing them to move and fight totally independently, hitting their enemy where they least expect it. Their upbringing in such a hostile environment means that the Catachans believe even the most suicidal of military engagements are absolutely nothing compared to the dangers they face on their home planet on a day-to-day basis. Their exploits are so legendary across the Imperium that the stories told about them laud them almost as highly as the Adeptus Astartes, it being totally unthinkable that mortals should be capable of performing such incredible feats in battle in some of the most brutal war zones across the galaxy. Born from the nuclear wasteland of their war-torn home, this Guard regiment is a fan favourite. But what exactly makes the Death Corps of Krieg so unique? For over 1,500 years, the Death World, known as Krieg, was the site of a bloody rebellion against the Imperium of Man. During the 40th millennium, in an attempt to end the seemingly endless war, the planet was absolutely obliterated by nuclear hellfire that left the surface a radioactive wasteland. Even in the wake of this destruction, the battle continued to rage for another 500 years. A meat grinder fought trench by trench until the Imperium's ultimate, if Pyrrhic, victory. Many remaining on Krieg sought to atone for the sins of their rebellious people, and lacking any other resources for the Imperial tithe, they gave the only thing they had: their bodies and eternal service. The now battle-hardened soldiers would form the Death Corps of Krieg. Experts in siege warfare and equipped for the most hostile environments, they are sent to some of the deadliest war zones known in the Imperium, often at their own request, as they seek to further their pathological need for atonement. The Krieg have gained a reputation for being totally uncompromising in battle, reluctant to retreat or surrender, with many preferring death if it should come to it. They see themselves as little more than living weapons to carry out the Emperor's will, infinitely replaceable and totally anonymous under their distinctive respirator masks. The Krieg's zeal in battle and often grim humor can prove unsettling for those that they are deployed with many reporting morale issues after their soldiers witness the ruthless way in which the Krieg fight. The commissars assigned to the Krieg regiments are the only non-Krieg natives that fight among the Death Corps. Because of their soldiers' innate desire to fight and strict training, they rarely have to deal with infractions among their men. Instead, they spend most of their time easing the relations between the Krieg and the other regiments that they're deployed alongside. The Krieg soldiers are the definition of a utilitarian force made for only one thing: putting everything on the line for their emperor in the hope of one day earning his forgiveness. The citizens of this planet are born into debt, with every single resource they consume added to their ledger from the very first breath that they take. Many choose to repay their debt in the service of the Jopall Indentured Squadrons. Jopall is a largely peaceful agri-world deep in the Armageddon sector. However, each citizen is born with a government account that keeps track of every single one of the resources it takes to sustain them through childhood. This debt then follows them their entire life, with the expectation to repay as soon as the citizen is old enough to earn their keep. Most will spend their entire adult life working off the debt incurred simply by growing up. There are, however, ways to get around this system. Some will borrow money from a local lord, for example, but many others will opt instead to serve the Jopall Indentured Squadrons and pay their debts in blood. The pressure that is created by their looming payments mean that the Jopall are never struggling for new recruits. Unlike many other Imperial Guard regiments, the Jopall do not fight for the good of the Imperium or a sense of honor and duty. Their only motivation for fighting at all is paying what they owe. They are renowned for being incredibly greedy and individualistic, often keeping tallies of their kills so that they can accurately claim the compensation that is owed to them. Each kill can prove so lucrative that, at times, soldiers have been recorded breaking ranks and assimilating themselves into the local militia for the chance to poison enemy water supplies or pick off targets from hidden sniper positions that the rigid rules of their regiment would not allow for. Many officers of more traditional regiments look upon the Jopall with contempt, seeing them as out of control and dangerous to the soldiers that they fight alongside. The Death Corps of Krieg, for example, hold a special disgust for the Jopall squadrons, viewing their motivation for fighting borderline heretical. To the citizens of Jopall, the choice is clear: spend your life in debt or fight for your freedom, and make sure you get paid no matter what. every single family on this distant planet is made to forfeit their firstborn child to fight for the Imperium. These children will become part of the Vostroyan Firstborn Regiment. The planet of Vostroya sits in the Halo Zone, a region beyond the Eye of Terror that is outside the reach of the Astronomicon, meaning it's very difficult for the Imperium to travel safely through the warp to this region of space. During the Horus Heresy, the people of Vostroya would refuse the Emperor's call for soldiers to fight against his traitorous son, instead withholding them to keep their factories running and well protected. When Horus was eventually defeated, the Vostroyans were made to answer for their transgressions. They would offer the firstborn son of every family on their entire world as atonement for their sins, from the highest ranking nobles to the lowest of street rats. In the millennia since the Horus Heresy, this practice has evolved into a status symbol among the Vostroyans. The noble families put great importance on their firstborn service and consider it a great dishonor to have no male firstborn to give. Unlike many of the other Imperial Guard regiments, the Firstborn are not raised as complete armies, instead seeing a steady trickle of new conscripts as more children come of age. The sacrifice they make has forged the Vostroyans into devoted servants of the Emperor, with many holding disdain for regiments that they see as less loyal or zealous than themselves. This Brotherhood of Arms is not without its flaws. The internal structure is incredibly classist, with the nobles often finding their way to officer positions, whereas lowborns are seen as unfit to occupy such a station. One day, the Vostroyans may feel they have repaid their debt, but until then, it is the honor of every firstborn son to fight and die for the Emperor, whether they like it or not. After surviving the frozen wastes of their homeworld, this Imperial Guard regiment is almost unbreakable, refusing to surrender even when facing total annihilation. These stalwart souls are the Valhallan Ice Warriors. The planet of Valhalla was once a vibrant paradise, lush with vegetation and exotic creatures. That was until a comet impact shunted the world from its orbit, thus turning it into an incredibly hostile ice planet. Those that survived were forced underground, unable to survive on the planet's deadly surface. They carved huge cities out of the bedrock and made some difficult choices in order to save their people. As if to rub salt into a fresh wound, shortly after the world-altering cataclysm, an orc invasion pushed the Valhallans to the very brink of collapse. Despite the odds, they refused to surrender and eventually drove the invaders from the planet. From the ashes of this struggle grew some of the most steadfast, uncompromising soldiers in the Imperial Guard, who harbor a deep-seated hatred for the greenskins who dared to attack their homeworld when they were at their weakest. As such, the Ice Warriors can often be found where the orcs are the biggest threat, putting their inherent seething rage to good use. Since the formation of the Great Rift, Valhalla has been cut off from the Imperium, but unlike many of its close neighbors, it has not succumbed to heresy, rebellion, or even the aggressive Xenos attacks that it has been subjected to. The Ice Warriors are specialists in defense, where many would break ranks and flee. They stand fast, and more often than not, the attacking forces need to completely destroy them in order to hold the ground that they take. When on the offensive, the Valhallans make great use of devastating artillery bombardments to soften hard targets before sending wave upon wave of infantry until their enemy crumbles under the weight of their attacks. Not every Imperial Guard regiment goes to battle in their immaculate parade gear, but then again, not every regiment is the Mordian Iron Guard. The planet Mordian was once ruled in the name of the Emperor by a group known as the Tetrarchs. Their rule was harsh, their word was law, and their power absolute. This was seen as a necessity, as Mordian's resources were incredibly scarce. Any deviation from the strict rationing laid out by the Tetrarchs could spell disaster for the planet. From this regimented system, it was only natural that disciplined, rule-abiding soldiers would be forged to respect the chain of command. To be allowed into the ranks of the Iron Guard, a recruit must display great discipline. Their training is rigorous, and it is instilled into the individual that they fight for only 2 two causes: the protection of the Emperor and the preservation of Mordian. This indoctrination builds a reverence for their leaders that borders on fanatical, and an understanding that their dedication is the only thing standing between a prosperous homeworld and a descent into starvation and savagery. Much of the downtime of an Iron Guard soldier is spent maintaining their equipment or marching in perfect unison on the parade grounds. When they are finally sent to battle, they do so dressed in the same fine uniforms that they march in, making them a unique sight for the enemy as they line up in perfectly structured ranks and fire precisely timed volleys from their well-polished lasguns. Mordians do not surrender even when faced with demonic hordes of chaos. They stand their ground, striking down their enemy with continued disciplined fire. The skills of the Iron Guard are revered across the Imperium, with few being able to match their ability with a lasgun, whether it be in sheer rate of fire or accuracy under extraordinary pressure. They are so dedicated to the chain of command that the Imperial commanders will choose the Mordians for the most dire of situations, knowing that they will carry out their orders no matter the cost or consequence. The Maccabian Janissaries are fanatical Imperial Guardsmen that leave their homeworld to defend the Imperium in the name of their great patron saint, never to return again. Now, the world of Maccabius Quintus is an inhospitable place to say the least, with a harsh climate and few useful resources to offer, but it maintains a place of high import to the Imperium. In early M39, the war against the Uvarth raged in the Calyx Expanse. After rising to power as Lord General Militant of the Imperial Guard, Drusus would find himself targeted by rival generals, jealous of his new position. When he was eventually slain by assassins, however, Drusus would appear to rise from the dead, with many believing the Emperor himself had returned him as a living saint. The now Saint Drusus would go on to lead the Angevin Crusade, destroying the Uvarth and saving the Calyxus sector. The Maccabian Janissaries now fight in the saint's name and his unconquerable devotion to the Emperor. Maccabius Quintus was transformed into an imperial shrine world, and it is from here that the Janissaries are hand-picked from the ranks of the Maccabian militias who defend the planet. The Janissaries are rigorously trained and dressed in finely crafted flak armor adorned with sigils to their patron. The trademark mask that each soldier wears is molded in the image of Drusus himself and is beautifully silvered as an act of reverence to the man who saved their homeworld. The Janissaries themselves are incredibly capable marksmen, trained to fight in tight formations. They are often seen quite literally shoulder to shoulder with one another. They are so devout in their faith in the Emperor and his ability to resurrect the fallen that they can always be found at the center of battle lines, facing the enemy head-on with very little regard for their own safety. Once trained, a Janissary will never return to Maccabius Quintus, instead volunteering for deployments that place them at the absolute forefront of the Imperium Wars so that they may continue their militant pilgrimage in the name of Drusus and the Emperor who saved him from death. These warriors of the Imperial Guard are bound by an ancient code of honor that they keep directly over their heart. They are known as the Vitrian Dragoons. Originating from the vast arid desert world of Vitria, the Dragoons come from a martial culture, which is guided by an ancient text known as the Beata. This text lays out the combat doctrine, philosophies, and principles of the regiment and is so revered that it is a capital offense to let any non-Vitrians read it. Each soldier of the Dragoons has their own copy of the Beata, printed on paper that is genetically coded to each individual so that only they may open the book. Armed with basic lasguns, the Dragoons deploy in squads larger than the norm, with their rifles always set to overcharged, as the Beata teaches that the first shot fired should also be the last. The rigid nature of the Dragoons' training and culture does, however, come with certain downsides, as described in the book series Gaunt's Ghosts, when Commissar Gaunt notes after serving alongside the Vitrian 3rd Regiment that while fantastic soldiers, the Dragoons are not well suited to fluid fluid, ever-changing battles due to their strict adherence to their code. The Dragoons are dressed in armor formed from the metallic glass that their homeworld is famed for, made of layered shards reminiscent of dragon scales. This special armor is perfectly crafted to fit each soldier like a well-tailored suit, and can absorb massive amounts of damage, especially from energy weapons. In addition to its protective values, the armor has the ability to completely change color by rotating each scale and revealing its much darker underside, giving the Dragoons fantastic nighttime camouflage. Today, the Dragoons fight as part of the Sabbat World's crusade, continually making a name for themselves as some of the most well-drilled, effective warriors within the ranks of the Imperial Guard. The soldiers of this Imperial Guard regiment are experts in armored warfare and dealing with the Green Tide. This is the Armageddon Steel Legion. Now, the hive world of Armageddon was once known instead as an orc capital world called Ullanor. After the Imperium proved victorious in the War of the Beast, the Adeptus Mechanicus was tasked with destroying this world. Unknown to most of the Imperium, however, they instead teleported it to the Armageddon system because of its vast natural resources and transformed the world into the huge industrial complex that it is now. Since then, the orcs have beset this world on multiple occasions in some of the bloodiest conflicts known to man. Armageddon has a massive population, meaning it is capable of raising many regiments in its defense. The members of the Steel Legion are drawn from a specific subset of these people, however. The hive cities of this world are riddled with crime and violent gangs, and it is these hive city gangs that the Steel Legion target for conscription. After all, they don't need to be taught how to kill, only how to follow orders. Armageddon is one of the Imperium's primary manufacturers of armored transport vehicles, and this fact has heavily affected the Steel Legion's combat doctrine. Their forces are extremely mobile, forming long convoys that can plow through the enemy defensive lines before deploying infantry to round up and finish off any survivors. Their rapid deployment through armored vehicles also makes them a go-to choice when other regiments are threatened with collapse. Along with their mechanized infantry, the Steel Legion deploy the infamous Lehman Russ battle tank, various artillery support vehicles, and even the super heavy tank known as the Baneblade. The armaments of the Steel Legion are a luxury that some regiments can only dream of, and they put them to use with some devastating results. Born and raised for war, this Imperial Guard regiment is known best by its now annihilated world known as Cadia. The Cadian shock troopers are some of the most dogged and loyal soldiers that the Imperium has raised. At a young age, a Cadian will begin their training, with lessons in maintaining and firing weapons being taught even before basic writing skills. Every son or daughter of Cadia embraces the reality of war, understanding that hating their enemy is a necessity for their survival. They are fanatically devoted to the Imperium and spurn anyone who refuses to serve in its name, weeding out weakness at any cost. When children of Cadia come of age, they are inducted into youth armies, organized into white shield platoons and trained under some brutal conditions. The core belief of the shock troopers is that no war can be won alone, which is why all training happens as part of a group and the recruits are drilled extensively, focusing on strength, stamina, self-sacrifice, marksmanship, and discipline. Part of their training involves them fighting alongside their adult comrades in real battles, allowing them to learn firsthand what it takes to defend their home from the ever-looming threats that surround it. Military service for a Cadian is not a choice, it is their very purpose from the moment they are born, and should they need to, they will not hesitate to put their life on the line in the name of the Emperor and for the good of their people. So good is their training that by many they are seen as second only to the Space Marines themselves, many other Imperial Guard regiments basing their organization and methods on those used by the Cadians, as they are seen as the ideal template for an effective army. When their homeworld was destroyed during the 13th Black Crusade at the hands of Abaddon the Despoiler, its people did not crumble as the forces of chaos might have suspected. The remaining shock troopers scattered across the Imperium became a mobile force that trained entire platoons while traveling between war zones. Those who survived the sundering of their planet are only more determined now to avenge its destruction, whether it be in their lifetime or carried out by the generations of warriors that follow. As long as a single Cadian soldier continues to fight, their mantra remains true. Cadia stands. So that's it for this video. If there are any other Imperial Guard regiments you'd like us to take a look at in more detail, please do let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you're subscribed because there is plenty more where this came from. This channel is all about breaking down the lore of Warhammer 40k into bite-sized chunks. So if you need something that's a bit more digestible than the norm, this is the place to be. Thanks folks, and hopefully we will see you next time.